Hello
Hi.
and welcome. And today I'm going to interview Todd about his book, Only in Your Mind, Not Quite Poems from the Not So Linear Awakening Path, which is going to be published on
December 12th.
December 12th and is coming both as an
ebook and a paperback.
Yeah.
So if all goes well in Amazon land, you will have the opportunity to choose which format you would like on the 12th.
Yeah.
However, pre-orders have actually already begun for the ebook version. They don't allow you to pre-order the paperback. So just know that it is coming. They both technically go live on the 12th, but you can pre-order the ebook if that's your preference.
Yeah. And the reason why I'm going to interview about it is because you're really bad talking about it.
Yeah, this is not my thing.
No, and it's quite a unique book. First of all, as you can see, it's a huge one. It's like 458 pages, something like that.
Yeah.
It's a lot, and it's not the average run-of-the-mill awakening book. This is made so different. It's not really poems, and it's not really prose, and it's very different. Can you say something about that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, first of all, it is a bit of a collection. There are poems or not poems in it. The range about 25 years old. And so basically I have been writing things for decades. And as I've been on the whole awakening path, there are things that have come out that were talking very much about where I was in those moments, and they felt real at that time. And so I've tried to keep some of those in as pretty accurate to the time as possible. Obviously, it's gone over many iterations over the years, and in cleaning things up and putting them in here, they have been changed a bit. But for the most part, I wanted to keep it as real to the times as possible. And then over half the book has been written in the past year, where you have ones which some of them are direct pointers. So basically the types of inquiries that I was doing, I've converted those into more of a poetic form. And so there's something that you can actually read and play along with.
Yeah, because if I may interrupt you, because that is what really makes this book so unique. Because normally when you buy a book about awakening, it's written of the author that is awakened and are seeing things from a different perspective, seeing it from the perspective of non-identification. But this book is not like that.
No,
it's both.
Yeah.
Because you both have all the poems that is written from the perspective of being in anxiety and panic attacks and self-harm and suicidal ideation and having all of that, and yet you have like a narrator that comes out and talks about it from where you're now.
You can find actually a lot of it times the just as you're reading through, you'll notice that things which are in italics are, as is kind of conventional, it's usually the thought of the person who's being talked about or writing. But if it's in parentheses and italics, it's really coming from the it's like the sort of warring inner narrator that's in our minds. And then there are some, like particularly in All But One Finger Pointing Back, where the bulk of the poem is written as though it's kind of in the present tense of somebody who's like very angrily warring about the state of, the political world and that sort of thing. But then the end of it is in italics, and it comes from this kind of wiser standpoint of the one who's now looking back at it and realizing where a lot of these things were coming from. And it is something that I think is really important to note, that unlike with a lot of sort of awakening books where everything is written from the awakened perspective and you can kind of read any part of it and go like, oh, that's pointing to some ultimate truth, there's some wisdom there. With this book, it might feel like that's happening all the way through, but no point of that is a place to stand. Each through each part of the awakening journey, it feels like you are reaching something that feels like some ultimate truth. And this is some stopping point, or some, I finally got it. It's the thing. I understand something. And so that is displayed throughout the course of the book. And then you just keep finding that, oh, that wasn't it. Oh, no, that wasn't it either. And so it's a reminder as we're doing this, but also that hopefully you'll recognize yourself as you're wherever you are in the path, that as you're reading through and the person in the book is effectively lost in the weeds someplace or caught in some sort of belief. I'm hoping that different readers will resonate with that and find themselves there, and then hopefully be pulled along the ride into the next insights.
Yeah, you have a poem called Bypassing 101, which I really find is very, very brilliantly written, because if you in your life is bypassing, you're gonna absolutely side with the narrator of the poem, with the one reading the poem. You're absolutely recognizing yourself in that and going like, see? But if you have been bypassing and you're no longer bypassing, you read it as absolutely comedy.
Yeah, it's total really, satire.
Yeah, exactly. But it's so written that it depends on where you are. And I just want to circle back to the title of the book, Only in Your Mind, because there's a reason why you're calling it that.
Yeah. I mean, literally everything in the book is happening in your mind. The way that it's laid out, the way that our entire experience, as we know, as we talk about all the time, if you follow what we do, it's all about realizing how much of our daily experience is something that is a product of our own conditioning and our own mental states and biological processing. And so it's something where if you keep in mind as you're reading the book that every time you feel like you have some insight, or that there's also some negative aspect of your life, all of the anxiety, all of the depression and suicidal ideation and all of that stuff, there's all a self-related unreality to that it is all happening in your mind. And it is hopefully also, if you make it all the way through the book, hopefully there is some light shining there that you can see that actually it's okay that things are all happening in your mind, and that it gives you a sense of maybe power or okayness with the fact that these things can be there, and that they're not real, and they're not permanent, that there's nothing that is going to, it's not you versus the reality of anxiety, this monster of anxiety that's coming to take you away. It's just a habitual behavior pattern and a way of buying into certain beliefs and thoughts and running away from certain sensations in the body. And so it's that kind of thing. And
it's everything from poems that are rhyming that has been written as if it's fiction.
Yeah.
And when you start to read it, you read it like normally, prose. like prose, and then suddenly you hear in your mind that it's rhyming, and then immediately you get into a rhythm and start to read to it differently. To everything, the cover and the back and the side and everything are small snippets from the book that you can see in the pictures on it. They are the illustrations that you have between the chapters that are not chapters. There's so many things that are pointing to the fact that all this is only happening in your mind. And what I really like about it is the part that no matter where you are on your path, you are going to find yourself in this. You're going to recognize yourself in this. And it's not going to be that it's a teacher speaking to you. It's a recognition that is coming from the inside, from your mind, that you completely understand the recognition. And then you're being taken by your hand and led through the book.
Which also brings us to one of the reoccurring characters or reoccurring sections of the book are these teachings by Pasadi Maitri,
Guru
Pasadi Maitri, who is not a real person. It's in there because it's a reminder that there is this inner wisdom in all of us that we can turn to at any point. And so even when you are in, the microcosm of our mind, when it seems like, everything is just monsters and scariness and uncertainty and all of that there is also this inner wisdom, this inner guru that we have to to appeal to. And so, even within all of the madness of the book itself and the things that he's going through in it, there's also that same kind of refuge of wisdom that he can turn to. And sometimes it's kind of hard to tell. There are some poems which I think could be Pasadi Maitri poems, but aren't. Because, again, it's that thing where there really is no clear line even between what is our, inner guru and something else. And there are also multiple appeals in here to be wary of putting that onto external people and worshiping external gurus as though they have something that you don't.
And I would like for you to read Wardrobe Changes, but before you do, I also want to say that that even though it is so quite poems from a not so linear awakening path, no matter if you're into poems or not into poems, you're gonna like this book because there's something for everyone, and the way that it's written, it's very recognizable and very, very down to earth. So I was thinking if you could read Wardrobe Changes.
Sure, yeah. Okay, this is a very, very short one. Wardrobe Changes. Clothes are enough to make, break, change, or kill a man. And clothing is purely an external adornment. Imagine then the power of thoughts, those fleeting adornments of the unstainable mind.
I love it. I love it so much. That is one of those poems that you can have with you, and that you can meditate over, and you can reflect on, and you can, whenever you look down and you look at your clothes or you see your body or anything like that, that you can turn it into a topic that is a bit more powerful, if you can say it like that. And you have a lot of those type of poems in it. Talk a bit about the sections of the book, because
Sure.
the sections of the book is written like the awakening path.
Yeah. I was it was sort of an intentional thing to make sure that it wasn't just 10 fetters and one section per fetter, and they actually blend rather seamlessly. So it starts off with catalysts, and that's mostly the sort of the backstory to the things that propel us onto the awakening path. So it's things dealing with anxiety and depression and childhood traumas and things like that so many of us have as our backstories that kind of lead us there. And then having, maybe learning about, in my case, it was finding out about Zen and Buddhism and having these kind of moments of real intrigue and interest, like it was speaking to something that I knew before I was born or something. Like it just had this like resonance, like, oh, I remember that. And then that leads us into falling headfirst into the stream, where you are rather propelled into the first fetter territory. And so there's multiple different, because we always are so adamant about saying that nothing is linear on the path, and it's not like a one and done experience for most people. You can have these real clear insights and these clear awakening moments and shifts, and then something happens and you realize that what you had thought was like a clear shift before was just sort of a glimpse of something else. And so there are multiple in that section, sort of first fetter awakening things. And then, as is often the case, you also get some insights into things further down the line, into later fetter territory that kind of come and go. So then after things are kind of hunky-dory and, having the blissful honeymoon period of the first awakening, then you get thrown into kind of gradually deepening spirals of the dark night stuff, of all of the going back and dealing with the traumas and the anxieties and the things that still haven't been worked through. And so it feels like we're kind of going deeper and deeper for a while until new insights come, and then we get into territories of dealing with boundaries and territories that deal with all of our fourth and fifth fetter issues, and then you can if you're aware of the awakening curriculum stuff and the fetters in this kind of way that we work with them, you'll recognize that, oh, this one is like talking about the sixth fetter and this one is talking about the eighth fetter, but they're never specifically mentioned like that.
Because it's very much like life is, that even though we have all 10 fetters present in our life all the time in every single moment, it's not like that.
No.
It boxed in and being specific that way, and you've done it really, really well with the poems, that you're quite clear on what it is, but you can also see like lines or hooks going into the other fetters in it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And then it ends at the end with being completely clear and seeing things clearly. And Guru Prasad Maitri has some amazing insights. So I'm getting back to that in a moment. I was thinking, would you like to read Nobody Expects the Quiet One?
Yeah, absolutely. So this one is sort of a cross between, it's not a specifically guiding poem, but it's very much in that territory. And this is one of the shorter of those.
Yeah, but it's because you have some very, very, very clear inquiry poems.
Yeah.
And then you have the ones that are more like insight from the space that you were in when you experienced it. Yeah. And that Nobody Expects the Quiet One is one of them. Yeah.
Well, and this one is actually, in this one, you can really tell, because the ones that are more of the direct pointing ones, which I guess I would consider this one, are usually in second person. The first person ones are a little bit more hidden, I think. Okay. Nobody expects the quiet one. Do you dream that daybreak will be enough to silence the voice who insists on keeping you company through the dark hours? Who lies alongside you, snuggled up, determined to make sure you never feel alone? Who distracts you from feeling the raw hunger of need scraping at your belly from the inside, lying still and rigid in this bed? And are the film reels the voice uses to keep you entertained old home movies of those key moments of life-altering embarrassment that it luxuriously narrates in slow, emphatic monotone? Those times when one simple word could have saved someone's heart from sustaining a premature tear. Does the voice perform one-person plays, acting out both roles of a steamy conversation in which both of you are made wrong, or at least made to feel wrong, which carries the same weight of unforgivable brokenness? Does that voice whisper secrets that even you shouldn't know? It's so kind, that voice. It has your best interests at heart. You can thank it. Acknowledge its sacrifice, concern, and yes, even its love for you. And then politely let it know that you are okay. You can handle the darkness. You can handle the anticipation of the unexpected. You can handle the silence, because you are safe and secure and inseparable from silence itself. It permeates you. It is you. Silence is your core, flesh, and aura. It is the subtle, unmoving vibration of life. No voice can disrupt that silence. So no voice can be a disturbance. Silence is untouchable, undefilable, and indefinable. It remains pure, placid, and extends everlasting, thriving even in the noisiest environs. The voice may remain, showering you with all its misguided compassion, and you may welcome, indulge, ignore, or relieve it of its duty. Underneath, silence remains a testament to the unwavering resilience that is the fabric of your deepest untouchable nature. Just pause and listen. You will hear nothing else.
I love it so much. I love it so much because it's those things that are really, really difficult to write and to teach and to talk about in a direct way. It's very difficult to guide towards that. But when you use poetry in writing it, you really have a talent for writing so many sensations with the way that you put the words together and make it into. And what I like about it is that I have a snippet of a poem that is called "Cracks in the Foundation," where you very, very shortly gives so much pointing in it on the feeling that keeps coming back. Where in "Cracks in the Foundation" you say one of the sentences are, "Who would shame a kid for simply being a kid? Yet shame now stains every memory." And it's such a powerful way to say, to describe how it is to have experienced shame. And even though it's not making shame into being a real thing and being a big thing, it is a big thing, it is experienced as a big thing, but shame in itself doesn't exist. And yet it can color every single memory we have, and it can just put the flavor on our entire memory bank from our childhood, having that shame. And the way that you describe it, it's very much a coming of age book. You have descriptions from being on camp, and descriptions of so many different experiences where it's about coming of age. And then you have poems like that, like you just read, that is so direct pointing to we have the thoughts on one side that are just like over and over and over, and it's with us all the time, like snuggling up in bed with us, and it's there all the time. And yet you have the silence between all the words. You have the silence that is not
it's untouchable behind all of those all of the worries and all of the mental noise.
I love it.
Okay.
Do you want to read Pearls?
Sure. So, Pearls is another one pointing back to our memories and our clingings. So this is one that's, again, it's not direct act of inquiry type poem, but it's still very much pointing at something. Pearls. There is a thread that winds not from top knot, through forehead, larynx, trembling heart, solar plexus, hara, and contracted perineum, down through the legs, soles, grounding itself into the earth below. Instead, there is a thread that spans the trajectory of a body moving through space, a body sliding across horizontal time and pulling behind it the tendrils of past escapades. Each reminiscence another pearl on the string, emerging from our spine, curved from the weight of dragging this ever-growing necklace of self-definition with every step we take. Cutting the thread is possible, but nostalgia makes us reluctant, as though we could, through will of force, will of memory, hand over hand, pull ourselves back down that rope to experience the life which was once inherent in each of those fading pearls. An imaginary thread is every bit as binding as one made of woven steel. The body itself is only a conceptual net, crocheted to lash together similarities into substance. How can a mere thought be so heavy?
And I love that. That is one of the things that you repeat so many times in your teachings, that thought does not take up any space.
Yeah.
You know, it's not heavy. It doesn't have any weight. It doesn't.
No density.
No density.
No space,
nothing.
no area.
Exactly. And yet it is created into that very, very heavy thing that we carry along. And that is the thread throughout the book, about how much, also in the title Only in Your Mind, how much our thoughts are shaping everything, and how much we believe in the thought. Okay, so I also want to talk about that it's not only inquiries, because the poems you read right now are very much pointed and very inquiry, but you also have a lot of social commentary. And what I like about it is that it's not partition. It's not about either right or left. It's very much observing what is happening in the world from that point of awakening, the point of supporting everyone, wanting the best for everyone. So it's very, very sarky and very snarky and very and I was thinking if you would like to read, because one of my favorite ones are called Colors of Affiliation. It's I love the wordplay in it, and I love the very, very pointy description that it is in it, but it's very long.
It is.
So if you just can read like the first part, because first you get introduced to one person and then to another person, then it's like weaving in, and it's like one is connected with the other, with the other, with the other. So it's really, really interesting. But if you could just read the first part of it, that is... Yeah. Would you like that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And in this one, as
this one has been on the chopping block many times.
This one has, yeah. And partly it's because, this one and some of the other ones are written from the standpoint of this kind of, at least during certain parts in it, it's written by the kind of cynical, looking at the society through a very dark filter. And the Colors of Affiliation is very much filtered through this kind of cynical.
But this is one that has been on the chopping block a lot of times. I absolutely love it, and I have put my little foot down and wanting him. It needs to be in there because it's really, really good. But it is one of those more edgy, cynical, sarky ones. Really, really it stings when you hear it because it's so recognizable in so many ways from society. So would you mind reading?
No.
I thank you for leaving in the book.
Of course. Yeah. Well, thank you for advocating for it. Colors of Affiliation. Red socialist flags wave on recommissioned poles because even anarchists have a trademarked logo. Sweet angels steal their wings from the spines of the poor. Boasting red and white eyesores, these houses rally as one set of bars and stripes, ambling across a distended tapestry. White door, red brick, white siding, red wood, white molding, red cheeks surveying the street through white window panes with unceasing paranoia. Red blood, white skin, the rumble of distant red bomb skies and deep-fried white potato freedom fries and red coats and red ties shooting because they can't see the whites of their enemies' eyes. Red flags in black basements mourning spilled blood, plotting how much more'll need to be spilt. While above, white women, who wish they'd been born heiresses, blue-striped scarves double-wrapped around bronze throats in late August sun sip burnt Starbucks under black anonymous glasses, shivering to each other, because it's never been cool to be warm. And they're gone quick as they came, 'cause life's about the entrance and exit. The stay's the least climactic scene. Left fingerprints on glass tables, toe prints clinking toe rings cast in pewter by a native tribe whose name they never cared enough to pronounce correctly, on glass floors where their skirts would have been looked up if they weren't wearing jeans molded tight, so every ghost of undergarment, excised for sake of unsightly lines, could be ogled by a red-eyed degenerate sucking thin white cigarette to pacify his oral fixation. It's not lit. He doesn't like the taste of smoke. But people look down on you when you suck your thumb, or pens, or cocks. But cigarettes still get the public approval for now, so he can hold his head up, inflamed by a fascist libido and anarchist morality, as he looks up the skirts of little white girls carrying little white dolls with red blush on their high plastic cheekbones. And they wear short white skirts, both the doll and the girl, because the girl wants to grow up to be the doll. And the girl's mother waxes nostalgic about her days when she exuded the polymer mystique, fresh allure of that doll, lives vicariously through her daughter and her daughter's sordid little doll. And her father sneaks covert glimpses at the doll and gets a little hard on, and he wonders why he doesn't get one when he sees his wife who was once his pretty little consolation prize. A ribbon of white gold wrapped around the ring finger of his left hand, reminding him of his duties to this little girl and her little blonde doll. and his miserable wife, and their red and white house and Hawaiian blue swimming pool, and jade grass and imported tropical flowers of ruby, amethyst, saffron, his black car and his whitewashed office, and his black secretary at his white-collar job, and his black suit and white cuffs and his black caviar and white wine and the black eye he gave his wife after drinking too much white wine, and the blackout that followed the same white wine, and the red flush his ears take on when he lies, little white lies about not sleeping with his black secretary, and not taking too many of those little white pills, and not giving his wife that black eye as an anniversary present. It is dark. It is so dark.
And it goes down and down and down. It gets worse and worse and worse. And you might question, why is that in an awakening book?
Yeah.
Why? Because this is not the only one. There are a lot of these very snacky observations of society and commenting on it. But the thing is that all of this is so recognizable. This is what we come from. This is where we start out. And if you want an honest book about awakening, we need to embrace all of it. We need to really look at where we come from. What are the causes and conditions that leads us to where we are right now? Because just saying that an awakening process, it's just about me realizing that there's no identification with anything and everything that is happening in me, it's just causes and conditions. That is too cheap. That is just too superfluous. An awakening process is realizing all of it and seeing exactly what you're describing there, and not having things against it, but to be able to see it on the level that it is, that it's just a masquerade, it's just a play, it's just a performance that is happening, but when you're in it, it feels so real and is lived in a very, very deep, profound way. Absolutely. And when you wrote this, it was before your awakening, so it was back when all of this was, you have written it with so much despise and so much, which is really important, I think, to have in it as well, so we're not just what do you call it, sailing over all the depth of, yeah
I agree completely. And I think it's relevant that the book is very unvarnished in a lot of the ways that it looks at things, and talking about my past experiences and things, it's quite honest and raw.
And you also have some other poems about self-harm and about suicidal ideation that we're not reading here because we can't in a YouTube video, so we're not. They're in the book. But I was thinking, because all of it, as you have probably understood now, is the way that you have seen it over the last 30 years, how it was experienced and how it's seen and how it was experienced and how it's viewed now. Plus you have that guru that we are getting back to in a moment in the back of the mind. But there's also other descriptions in it of other people that is not you, but is very clearly coming from you, and you can question when you read it, okay, is this Todd, even though it's about a woman, or is this and all of the people in it are weaved together in a very deep understanding that you get when you're at the last page. So I was thinking if you would read Gloria.
Heartburn.
So the one Todd just read out before Colors of Affiliation, and then this one, we're including them in this interview for you to see that this awakening book, it's a very, very weird and unusual awakening book, but it is pointing to an awakening, and it's taking you, taking the reader with your own process in it.
All right. Heartburn. Gloria's insides were ablaze. The beast was licking up her belly straight up into the cleft between her breasts, and the fire grew progressively worse. She didn't remember why she burned so bad, or when the burning had begun. It was so unbearable, the pain, the slashing, mutilating sear, that she'd developed spontaneous amnesia. There was no time before the pain, and so there was likely no time after it. There was only scorching agony for all time ever and ever, without reprieve. which is why it is quite unimaginable, at least to a cowardly sack like yours truly, that she would continue to live out her life in all its insufferable misery, one excruciating second at a time. She got up when the alarm screeched in terror every morning, only she couldn't remember why she'd set it. So she would mull it over for a while before turning it off, rolling over, and falling back to a fitful, only slightly less excruciating sleep. Then the phone would ring 90 minutes later, telling her she was late for a job she didn't remember holding, somewhere in a state in which she didn't even know she lived. The daily hygienic routines would take care of themselves without much attention. Her cell phone would direct her step by step to her office, and though doubled up in unbearable agony, she put in her 9 to 12 hours of grind and paper shuffling and small talk, every bit as unbearable as the flames raging up her torso. Then back home at last to soak in an ice bath, to reach a state near hypothermia, to have a few moments of reprieve when everything shuts off, and she forgets even those things she's already forgotten. But too soon the ice is melted, and her body has returned from purple to that inflamed crimson too hot to touch, and she remembers to set the alarm, but she's already forgotten what for. And so it went on like this, until one day, on another packed bus to somewhere, pushed uncomfortably close to a cooing, slobbering baby, she brushed gazes with a woman she didn't remember having seen before. And the pain very subtly abated when their eyes met a second time. And when the stranger took that brief connection as a cue to ask her where she was heading, and Gloria, who had no idea where it was that she was heading, said she couldn't remember, and the stranger thought it was endearing rather than off-putting, then the pain receded even more. And when the two women got off the bus at the same stop, the stranger's stop, and walked together into the stranger's apartment, then the pain was only a straight-lined mouth with dissociated eyes. And when their tongues touched, and they caressed each other, and explored each other's bodies from one extremity to the other, the pain was only a distant memory. And when Gloria saw the stranger's scar, and when the stranger bashfully explained about her fractured discs, and the weeks of traction, and the incredible agony of learning to walk again with years of physical therapy, Gloria's pain found its antipode, melting together into the stranger's phantom remembrance of pain released. And when their bodies were rubbing together like two sticks about to ignite, her memory of the pain evaporated, and her memory of everything else returned. And she remembered that there was nothing she needed to go back to, that there was nothing so good or pressing or necessary that she couldn't just forget everything before this moment, and everything that would come later, tomorrow, or never, and could instead live on in this blissful embrace for all time, ever and ever, without reprieve, one excruciatingly blissful second at a time.
I love it. Thank you. Thanks. I would like for you to talk about the poem. Would you like to talk about it? I love the parts about that there's so many things that we're doing and we have completely forgotten why we're doing them. Yeah. I mean, in so many aspects of our lives that we just become completely blind, and even though it's painful, we keep doing it and we have no recollection of why we're actually doing. Would you like to talk about the poem a bit?
Actually, it's funny. I enjoy hearing you talk about them more. I've never been a big fan of going into them too deeply.
Okay, but what I also like about it is because, like I said, all the poems are connected and all the people are connected, and the woman that Gloria meets you will meet in another poem, but it's not served on a platter. Yeah. All of it is happening in your mind when you read it, and you need to do the deductions yourself. So it's a really, really weird book in many ways. That cannot be stressed enough. It's really, really weird book in many ways.
I think I say that in the preface or the in the beginning and in the forward. It's both in there. But I would say, with that one, it's really about, in a lot of ways, finding that pain that we feel like we're in throughout our just daily mundane existence, and finding that we're not alone in that. And, for me, I think one of the key bits in that is where it's like her pain finds its antipode in the pain of somebody else, and realizes that reflection, and also that so much of our struggling and suffering is self-made.
Yeah.
And it's believed in, and that it really doesn't have more than that veneer of torment to it.
Yeah.
And that there is a possibility for so many things, even with physical pain, that there are ways to approach it where it loses that valence of pain. And that it's a matter of attention and preference and experience and insight and so many other options than just the way that we take things at face value.
Yeah.
And there's also the inherent romantic aspect of it, that
which is also just lovely.
Love heals all.
Yeah, exactly. Such a romantic.
Such a romantic.
and I love that you're not really focused about gender in it. It's not really that because you're a man you can only write as a man, because Gloria could be a man or a woman. It just so happened that in this story, exactly. I really love that. So you would like to read There Are Things We Don't Know and Things We Can Never Know. Why would you like to read that?
So this is one of the later poems in the book. And this one is one of the sort of 10th fetter pointers that really drops us in, where we realize that we can't really know anything or come to any terms with anything. And this is, again, it's some of the poems rhyme, some do not. This is one that actually does rhyme. And I think it's just an important one to bring us back to, especially after the ones that we've just read.
Yeah.
Bring us back into the point of the book and sort of the goalless goal that we're heading towards in that regard. I just thought it'd be a good one to.
I think it's here. a good idea to get us back into.
Yeah.
Into.
We'll go back in that.
Yeah.
Back in this territory.
Yes.
So it's called "There Are Things We Don't Know That We Can Never Know," and the title was, I think it's a paraphrase of a Robert Saltzman quote that was really explosive to me, because I had so much in my life. There was so much doubt, and it was so much the need to know something. I needed certainty. I needed truth. I needed to finally have that security so that I knew something. And it was when I heard him say effectively that there are just things that nobody does know or can ever know, and it just felt like this weight fell off my shoulders. It was like, oh right, I can give up the whole search is just never leading anywhere. And that was huge. So the title is in quotes because, and I've tried to find, it was on a video that I had seen years ago, and I can never find the actual quote that I heard, but I know it's something to that effect, because I had written about it right afterwards, so it was something about that. So, there are things we don't know that we can never know. Always, the dead weight of uncertainty dragged like an anchor around these shoulders, knees and will buckling, lashing out with sarcasm and rancor to offset the crushing pressure that often proved too heavy to measure. Suspended in the gap between thoughts, speaking would be a trap, in which the mind would happily find itself caught. Why utter a single word at all? The gall to sully this perfection with the inflection of one selective perspective, when both acceptance and rejection have been struck dumb, succumbed to direct beingness. Seeing this, who would attempt to move one scintilla of body or mind when every direction brings confounding, feet filling a pedestal astoundingly no wider than the imagined mental outline of leathery skin and subtle energy? What needs to be done when all problems have been solved? Curious how we evolved the notions of barriers we then fought a whole life to transcend or dissolve, when nothing ever needed to be changed or fixed or done, remaining the same since astronomical time was first imagined to have begun. A shame-derived injunction that we must never quietly function in some surrendered, peaceful way, content to simply be okay with any apparent condition and its eventual inevitable outcome. Relax the breath. Just be. Just rest. What else is left? Any step brings instant peril, creating rebirth and ceaseless death. Every story begins, then ends, so must begin again. No utility to such careless frivolity as expressing one's contrived creativity. An egoic endeavor, indenturing the creator with the maintenance of his fictions, obsessed by the minutiae of diction, each page an exhibit, proving his slavery, addicted to his fruitful verbal predilection. Such a deluded fascination, attempting communication where only silence has potency, veracity. Cessation makes transparent experiences once cast with a delusive opacity that were, all the time one amusedly finds, neither opaque nor delusional. Whatever is always was and shall remain thusly unspeakable, all theses rendered instantaneously unprovable. Mountains float like clouds, while the breezes freeze immovable. Who wakes up does so provisionally, weaving, briefly eluding the persistent possibility of falling into the trap of endless sleep, in the taking of sides or formulating of beliefs. All conviction an error. Delight evokes instant terror. Stillness exists between passing dichotomous emotional storms. The midwife creates pallbearer, as each thought creates forms. Why posit a place to stand? We can't name a piece of land without also labeling its contents, these pale transient inhabitants. But the organism defines the environment, and the two are inseparable. The rift was a fallacy of definition, so the rift remains irreparable. Why adhere to any position, inviting dissent and opposition? One boulder at rest won't create a collision. It takes at least two of anything, moving in opposing directions. So stop. And suddenly there's no one to even make a decision. But even that is a fallacy, a trite bias dichotomy. No self and no non-self. No known and no unknown. Just this. Just now. Creationless clarity, inconceivable, but no less unquestionably shown, such comfort in emptiness, satisfaction in silence, no need to impress when each barking syllable remains meaningless. This is called seeing without eyes, hearing without ears. What remains when the whole of creation, once believed in, easily, peacefully dissolves and disappears? Leaving nothing left of the apparitions, gone is the bright ethereal display. Even awareness and perspective are seen as too selective, a defective sobriquet. There's nothing that could ever be described, because it's a nothing words fail to convey. A lone plucked flower portrays it more wisely than a whole sutta full of words the Buddha knew well enough not to say. In the end, the Tao that can be written is a Tao that should be crumpled up and thrown away.
I love it so much. I love it so much.
So it's also, the later end of the book is ironically also devaluing the fact that the book is even written.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff about, is it really even fruitful to write and to do this kind of exposition through trying to teach somebody else or speak to somebody else or write it down, and that was very much reflected in there.
And it's also one of the reasons why it's so brilliant to make it into this type of not quite poems that you have made, because when you write a book or when you read a book, it's always the reader that is putting things into it, and unless you write something that is easy, understandable, pre-chewed, and people just kind of need to digest it like that, then no process is going to happen. And there's no depth is going to be added to it. But the difficult part about writing things that are really, really profound is that the mind of the reader is still working. And everything that is happening in the mind of the reader is what is perceived as truth and reality. Yeah. So what you have done with this book is taking all the different aspects of where the reader could potentially be, and you pick all of it up and takes it through the book. And then I would like to talk about the Guru Pasada Maitri. Yeah. So there is a guru in the book that has a very prominent place, and there's a lot of pain and suffering, like you just heard with Gloria. There's a lot of pain and a lot of suffering that is there, and then that is one side of it. And at the same time, you have Guru Pasari Maitri, that is a venerable guru that is really bringing amazing insights to the book. Could you say something about Pasari Maitri?
Yeah. These were actually, some of them were things that I had written years ago. And again, coming from, had been doing this work for 20 some years, but they were written from stages of insight that I had back then. And then for this book, I've gone through and added some, I've rewritten some, I've written new ones, and it's all kind of to enhance that idea of having that, like we said before, that there is an inner guru that we all have, or an inner wisdom that hopefully we can rely on and have some place to turn to. And so even within the chaos of even where I was over decades, there was still this kind of undercurrent of wisdom that was in there and that was available. And yeah, the Pasari Maitri are the least poetic of the things in the book. They're much more, I was really, when I first started writing them, it was actually as not a parody, but sort of an homage to some of the earlier, Buddhist suttas, but also some of the Taoist texts that are very much in that way. So some of the wording for the way that it
it's very when you read them, it is like reading a sutta.
Yeah.
And before we talk more about it, I just want to say that in the book there are other gurus as well. There are the Kaldai guru, that is not a good guru. There is the boxless box movement, that is not a good guru. Yeah. So there are Bhakti is another not good guru. So there are the person in the book is coming through life and meeting all these different truths and gurus that all of them really just are super toxic and are very clear pointing to what to be wary of and what to avoid. And then you have Guru Pasari Maitri, that is that inner voice where it's just so clear, and there's nobody to, even though it's written that sitting next to the venerable guru and all that, and it's very much an homage to all the suttas, but it's still very much spoken with so much love and compassion and space that is not present in the other gurus in the book.
And he also makes clear at least once that there's nothing special about him. Yeah. And the fact that that his imagined disciples are sitting in front of him is ludicrous, that they're looking to him for guidance. Yeah. And so it's something that comes through multiple times in the book.
Yeah. And the choice of the name Pasari Maitri is again, it's just a wink to all the Buddhist suttas, and where everybody are having names that means something. That if you are carpenter, your name is carpenter in Pali or Sanskrit, and it's the same with Pasari Maitri, which means Lent Damore in our own little weird about Sanskrit Pali way.
Yeah, his original name was a very long, I forget the English translation that I was using, but I went through and basically found, I think it was in Sanskrit is what I had chosen it that years ago. And I just found, I know it wouldn't work like actually in Sanskrit, but I used like little bits of it to make up this sentence that if you had just translated each one like that. But it was very long and unwieldy, and I like Pasari Maitri much better.
Then we decided on Pasari Maitri, Lent Damore, much better. Much better. So that's good. So that is the venerable guru Pasari Maitri. So the last thing I would like for you to read is in the book there's a poem called A Prescription, which is the venerable Pasari Maitri that is giving a talk, and at the end of that you have made a new 10 precepts that is in line with the awakening curriculum and with the 10 fetters, and I can absolutely see these 10 precepts being practiced and read over and over and over and over by people that are doing the awakening path, to kind of like use it as a brainwash and reminding yourself of the Awakening Path and the Awakening curriculum. Would you like to read all of it?
Yeah,
Or would
I'll read the whole thing, because this also gives you a feel of what the Passaddhi Maitri sections are like.
Okay.
A prescription. In a mood of serene gratitude and curiosity, Emmanuel asked Passaddhi Maitri of the most auspicious mindset, attitude, and concentration in which to live one's life. The Venerable Guru addressed the congregation thusly. Emmanuel, as you have discovered, practicing the way is no difficult task. If the trees can do it, then surely so can we. Remember, it is not knowledge of Scripture nor prayers to an external version of ourselves that will free us from delusion. Instead, we rely upon a very simple seeing through rather than a mundane surface peering, and a very simple remembrance of our current state that is not recalling our name or birth date, weight, or life story. You must all know by now that I'm not one for prayer, but there are times when repeating a mantra or a reminder can be quite beneficial. The message will be ingrained, and thus help the exhausted mind liberate itself from its own senseless toiling. I recommend for you all to repeat the following, not directed to a god or goddess, but to the emptiness of nature. Simply reciting for recitation's sake. Do not expect them, but should they bloom, the fruit of this recitation is a new set of behaviors, new eyes capable of something miraculous. Eyes that can see clearly through, to find that the cage has no bars, and that there is, in fact, no prisoner in the cageless cage. When you wake in the morning, think first these words. Thought forms, sensations, and body are all empty of inherent existence. Past and future are imaginary thought forms, thus empty of inherent existence. Actions arise free from purpose or control, thus striving is empty of inherent existence. Wanting is bodily sensation and diversion, thus craving is empty of inherent existence. Not wanting is bodily sensation and diversion, thus aversion is empty of inherent existence. All sense appearances arise and disperse together, thus separation is empty of inherent existence. All sense appearances arise and disperse in the now, thus time is empty of inherent existence. The totality is unified, free from all limiting belief, thus identification is empty of inherent existence. Actions arise spontaneously in the flow of totality, thus volition is empty of inherent existence. Not knowing is the highest wisdom, thus ignorance is empty of inherent existence. All is arising and dispersing in and out of beingness, inhabited only by an unspeakable commonality within all manifestations. Use it like medicine, regularly, faithfully, potently, and in time it just may cure you of your greatest dis-ease.
Love it so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So, the book, Only in Your Mind, is up on Amazon, and you can buy it in a hard copy, or you can buy it as an ebook from the 12th of December 24.
Yep.
We're probably going to do more talks. I know for me, myself, I'm going to do more talks about points in the poems that I really like. And I would like for us to talk more about it. I would like for you to do more readings about it. Yeah. If you're interested in interviewing Todd for your channel, then contact him on unfetteredmindfulness@gmail.com. If you have any questions or anything you would like to comment on, then it's also on email or under the video here. We keep the homepage, theawakeningcurriculum.com, updated with when you read new poems, We're going to put them in. But they will also be available on your channel on Unfettered Mindfulness on YouTube. I think that was it.
Yeah.
Is there anything you would like to say?
Oh, I think we've covered the basis of it. I think, again, it's a strange and probably unique book. I'm hoping that people find it helpful and in their process, and also entertaining. I mean, it is heavy at times, and it's also direct pointing at times. But I think I also am striving to have a book that's readable and enjoyable, also for the poetic nature of it, and that it's not just about reading it to become awake, but hopefully it stands up also just as as an enjoyable semi-poetic read.
And yeah, exactly. And also just like with the awakening curriculum, that there's always more to go back with. You can always reread the poems and get something more out of it and go a step deeper.
Yeah, I actually really recommend doing that, because I think every, like you always say that with the awakening curriculum stuff, that every time you have a new insight, you read something completely differently. And I think people in different, wherever you are right now, you're going to read this completely filtered through your own experience, and it's going to take on one particular light and have one particular meaning. And if you go back through, hopefully you will find over time that the meanings of things change, that you read things that you didn't read before, that you didn't hear. I even find, having gone through it, depending on the mental state at that moment, it either is just words or it's like pointing to something really deep, and it's really just about what we bring to it. And so, any book only goes so far. It only meets you halfway at best. Yeah. And the rest of it is really with just you making it into something else.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
I'm looking forward to this.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everyone.